A Nolan Wells bombshell report tonight. Does it reveal new witnesses? And because of the new timeline report, is there a timeline shift in what happened the afternoon and evening? Nolan Wells seemingly disappears. His body found washed up at Horn Island. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
It is just past 4:30 in the afternoon, and 10 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico, a voice is crackling across the water. It is young, and it is frightened, and it is telling a dispatcher that the boat is going down. You can hear the panic underneath every word. The water climbing, the pump dead, and somewhere behind that voice, other people shouting. To anyone listening, it sounds like the worst afternoon of a young man's life. What almost no one understands in that moment is that this recording will end up asking far more questions than it ever answers. Because when investigators later pulled the data straight off that same boat, the story the numbers told them did not match the voices on the call. That one mismatch is where this stops being a simple accident on the water and starts becoming something that, to this day, no one has been able to fully explain.
Incredibly impossible. One more thing, real quick. They're saying Nolan's name or projecting that Nolan is somehow...
A group of friends climb into their boats and head out to a remote barrier island, the kind of place you can only reach by water,
like
where a few hundred people have gathered to celebrate the holiday.
Very dangerous.
There is music, there is drinking, there is the easy, careless noise of young people who believe they have all the time in the world. By the end of the day, every single one of those friends will make it home to the mainland, except one.
My friends and I have been on
2
the water
days later,
life.
an 18-year-old is found along the shoreline of that very same island, close to the
Investigators
last
have
place anyone
said plainly that if
the last time she saw Nolan was when
almost right away that he drowned,
The photo at the
that it was
top
nothing
show,
more than a
that's
terrible
why we
accident,
thought it was significant
that
to
there
know
is
that
nothing
Yes,
left
and
to
the owner
look
can tell us who was on the boat
His
that
mother
day. Is that
refuses to
correct?
accept it.
video,
She does
it's
not
not a
argue
pic-
with her
we're
grief.
talking about
She
the-
argues with the
pointed to this a
explanation she has
million
been handed,
times.
and she asks
Now,
one
look in the
simple,
water. The
unshakable
much has been
question:
made.
how?
This timeline,
That the
I find
official
it
answer
very
cannot
what
survive.
actually happened on that
Within
island.
days, the family brings in
He saw
experts
this
of their
video that
own, and
Officer
what those
Tatum
experts
put
report
out?
turns a
Slash
case that everyone
Nancy.
thought was closed
Disclaimer,
wide open again.
Everything off of their
A
social
second
media
independent
accounts.
examination
Bring their
reportedly turns up a
variations,
mark on the back
but
of his
we
head
still have-
that no one has
She
accounted
called her,
for.
you know.
And just as
You know,
troubling,
what-
the very
Officer
evidence that could
Dingbat,
confirm a drowning
that is what
or
you're-
rule it
Or
out
death.
for good
No
is
upfront
somehow
fees.
not
It
there
costs you
when it
much.
is finally
There is
needed.
enough that
Two
we
of the
could
most
scrutinize
important
them.
answers
To
in
get
this
help from
entire
the public,
case
like you
are
said.
simply gone.
If people
So
Can we
here
go
is
back
where
to
things
the main
stand.
photo where the
A
boat
distress call that
Authenticity
does
of it.
not line
We
up
have
with the
checked
boat's
the
own
metadata.
data.
being
A
shallow
group of
water
friends
and
whose
deep water
accounts have
within just a
quietly
few
shifted
steps.
over
That video and
time.
those pictures were
A
taken.
young
Can
man
you
returned to
confirm
the
me right
exact
now?
Body was
shore he
found here,
vanished from,
and this
and a
second
family left to
autopsy
chase the
It's coming
truth
out
almost entirely on
trying
their own.
to
Over the next
have
few
to-
minutes, we
you
are
take
going
the
to
evidence
walk
as you
through
find
every
it.
piece of this together.
and said
The
they are
timeline, the
considering
recording,
violating-
and the
With another
forensic
group of friends
findings,
that I know?
and lay it all
Oh,
out
okay,
clearly,
He
used the
so that
term
by the
Nolan's
end, you
friend
can
that he
decide for
went to
yourself
What she
what
did,
you
but,
believe really happened out on that island.
I think
obtained by
Before we go any
our
further, a
friends
gentle
at
word
the-
of
Have
caution.
pictures, videos,
This
whatever.
case
Send it to
involves
us
the
just
death
so we
of a
can-
young
from
man,
where we were,
distressing
who was with us,
emergency
and what we know.
recordings, and
I
frank
know what's drinking.
discussion
Why
of
everybody got a
medical and
lawyer up?
forensic
Why everybody
findings.
got
None of it is easy to sit
back
with.
to
So
a
please
second
look
boat.
after yourself as you watch, and step
there's
away for
three
a moment
boats
if you
on
ever
July
need
the 4th?
to.
How do you know they did?
If you are
didn't
new
stage
here,
that and
welcome.
It is hard to
This is a
believe, and
channel
that's
where
why
we
it's
look at hard
extremely
cases
important.
carefully,
We have no metadata,
patiently,
we have no
and with
proof.
respect
How
for
do
the
we know?
people at
Then
the
you're gonna
center of
see
them.
if you
And
look
we would
very
love to have you
carefully-
stay.
Critical
So take a
hours.
second to
And the
subscribe
boat
before
itself
we begin.
How do we
And
know
while you are
when
there,
that
tell us in the
picture
comments
was
where in
taken?
the world you
Nolan
are watching
was
from tonight.
heavily
Because we
drinking on the
truly
you
love
know
seeing
about
how
the
far
alcohol
these
for the
stories
underage
go.
kids that day.
And to
Be
everyone
pretty
who
close
has
to our
walked
neck,
through
so
the earlier cases
that's
with
for
us,
The most
thank
important
you
pieces of
from the
tissue
bottom
you'd
of our
want
hearts.
if you were
The
Every
sheriff's
like you
department,
leave,
the
every
day
comment
of,
you write,
right when
and every
litigation is
share
not
you send
completed
out into
yet,
the world
and no
does more than you
official-
could
I could see
possibly
a girl
know.
holding
You
something
are
in
the
her
reason
hand
this
in the
channel
water.
has
Talking
grown,
about Ben
and you
Crump,
are the reason
and
stories like
Judge
Nolan's
Ashley
reach the
Flash
very
have
people
to
who
wait
might
for the
still be
police
holding a missing
investigation.
piece.
to account
You have turned
for
quiet
once
videos into real
toxicology
awareness,
results.
and we are grateful for
This is
each
from the
and every
Cajun
one of you.
Navy.
The young man at the center of this is Nolan Wells.
We also are going to forget the fact that
on the back of Wells's head,
he
deep enough to sit beneath the
Springs High and had gone on to Southwest Mississippi Community College
toward an accidental drowning. His parents never
see the video or the photo again.
The kind of kid who lit up a room without trying.
And that's where
his parents,
occupants on the boat, and Nolan was not there.
And Elmore Wansley would soon become the two people fighting hardest for an answer that made sense. Hold on to one detail as we go,
because as far as I know,
it matters later. Nolan could swim, and everyone who knew him says so plainly. On the morning of the 4th of July,
I would just like to know,
Nolan and a group of high school friends took boats out to Horn Island, a federally protected barrier island that sits roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi
to American
coast.
Financing.
There are no roads out there, no shops, no cell service.
The island until around 4:30 in the afternoon.
That day,
Average
a
savings
few
are
hundred
based on
people had come
borrowers.
out for the holiday. The last time anyone independently places Nolan on that island with certainty is around 3 in the afternoon. Reportedly, he had been spending time with a 19-year-old named Katie McCormack, and one early account suggested he chose to stay behind on the island to talk with her while the group headed in. Her sister Gracie would later dispute that version, saying Nolan had been ready to leave with everyone else. Both accounts are out there. For now, simply notice that they do not agree. What is not in dispute is that the boat ran into trouble. Sometime around 4 o'clock, one of the young men placed a distress call to SeaTow, the Marine Assistance Service, reporting that the vessel was taking on water and that the bilge pump had failed. GPS data pulled from the boat afterward shows it did not actually pull away from the island until roughly 4:30. And here is the anchor for everything that follows. So hold it in your mind. A GPS unit records a route, not a conversation. It can tell you exactly where a boat went and precisely when. It cannot tell you who was standing on the deck or what was being said. The boat returned to the mainland without Nolan aboard. His friends would say they believed he had found another ride home. He had not. Late that night, when he still had not turned up, his mother reported him missing. For 2 days, search crews combed the water and the shoreline. Then, on the morning of July 6th, a National Park Service ranger walking the island's northwest shore located Nolan in the water. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter's early read was that this looked like an accidental drowning, with no obvious sign of foul play. And the county coroner, Bruce Lynn, noted no immediate signs of injury. On the surface, that explanation fit the setting. The currents around these barrier islands can turn dangerous fast, and the coroner's office had handled island drownings before. But the answer that fit the location did not fit the young man. Nolan could swim. He was an athlete. To the people who knew him, the word accident landed less like a conclusion and more like an assumption made before anyone had really looked. Then came the detail that would not leave the family alone. Nolan's phone did not come back with him. It was reportedly recovered in the possession of one of the friends who had been on the island that
so we're dealing with quite a bit of decomposition.
Nobody had answered. How did his phone make it back to the mainland when he did not? Within days, the family retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump, whose team announced its own independent investigation, pointing to what they called contradictions in the case and a lack of information from official sources.
Talking about items.
From that moment, this stopped being a quiet tragedy on a remote island and became a national story. This case has changed almost every single week. So if you want to follow it the way the evidence actually unfolds, rather than the way it explodes online and gets corrected 2 days later, subscribe and stay with us. Because the next part is where a single short audio clip rewrote this entire story overnight, and where almost everything the internet had already decided began to come apart. To understand why this case went national, you have to understand the vacuum it landed in. There were very few confirmed facts and an enormous appetite for answers, and into that gap poured everything. There was also a racial dimension that could not be ignored. Nolan was a black teenager, and photos from the trip showed him among a mostly white group of friends. In a state whose history gives that detail real weight. The story drew in national figures.
Because
Reverend Al Sharpton spoke on the family's behalf. Tyler Perry reportedly covered funeral costs. Colin Kaepernick reportedly helped fund the family's independent autopsy. The stakes, in other words, were no longer local. The turning point was the audio.
The
The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources released the sea tow distress call, already partially redacted, and for several days the public treated it as exactly what it sounded like. Background noise from a sinking boat,
Harvey doubles down
nothing
and
more.
says, yes, we
Then
have confirmed
TMZ
it.
published an
also
enhanced version of that same call, and everything changed.
Being kept secret
Listeners said they could
us.
now
That
make
the
out
first person
alarming
arrested
phrases
is
buried in
somebody
the
who
background,
threatened.
and a theory spread to tens of millions of people before a single official had confirmed
what you're seeing here.
Online sleuths seized on the recording and attached a name to it.
You want to tell
A friend
me
named Bart
that
Edmiston Jr. It is
I wonder
critical
if
to
the
be
tide could
precise
tell me
here,
anything
both out of
between
fairness
the white
and out of
female
simple
and the
accuracy.
other flea
Edmiston has not been charged with anything,
his body.
and no official finding has tied him to Nolan's death. What's spread online was a theory, not a conclusion. The people closest to that boat tell a very different story.
It's not an uncommon thing
One
to
friend,
do, you know? I
Warren
mean,
Hudson,
a lot
gave a public account describing a genuine emergency. A boat actually taking on water, a friend panicking, voices calling for Nolan to get on board before they left. Edmiston's attorney, Russell Latino,
From the beginning,
went further,
investigators
describing the enhanced audio as a doctored recording paired with a suggestive transcript that, in his words, had no legitimacy. He said his client had cooperated with investigators and made the boat, the phone, and the GPS available for inspection. None of that proves what did or did not happen, but it sits directly against the viral version, and both cannot be true. So an independent expert actually examined the recordings. Robert Freed, a digital forensic specialist, compared the original release call against the TMZ enhanced version on the program Jesse Weber Live. What he found matters.
Was
The
Nolan
enhanced
the only
version
one
reportedly
on
ran
Horn
about 20
Island?
seconds longer than the original and carried a different digital fingerprint, and he could not corroborate any of the specific phrases people believed they were hearing. The
Because
complete,
we will not be able to rest.
unredacted original has still never been released to the public, and that leaves us in the most human trap there is. Once a person is told what they are supposed to hear, they tend to hear it. Reporting also surfaced two witnesses who told TMZ they saw Nolan still on Horn Island after the boat had already left, which, if accurate, would mean he was not even aboard when that call was recorded. Investigators have not officially confirmed those accounts, but they line up with what Hudson described. There is one more piece worth correcting, because the internet got it badly wrong. Yes, the FBI is involved.
Who we're drinking? Nobody is drawing attention to
the FBI did
that.
not identify a voice or take over the case.
Calling American Financing and American Finance.
Reportedly centers on interstate threats that were sent to people connected to the case after the audio went viral. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office remains the lead agency. This is federal support, not a federal takeover, and the difference is not a small one. Everything so far has been about what people heard or thought they heard. The science is where this case gets genuinely hard to resolve. And if you want to be here when the grand jury decision finally lands, this is the moment to turn on notifications, because we will break that down the same day it happens. Because there were two autopsies in this case,
They're asking multiple
and they do
tech
not
companies.
say the same thing. The state medical examiner conducted
Not
the
on a
official
polygraph.
autopsy on July 7th, the day after Nolan was found.
The
family, unconvinced, arranged a second independent examination performed around July 10th by the respected forensic pathologist, Dr. Roger Mitchell. On July 22nd, standing at the NOC National Convention in Chicago, the family's team announced Dr. Mitchell's preliminary conclusion.
If Nolan was
I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride it with somebody else.
Pending
all down his chest.
Not drowning.
The other
not homicide.
People
undetermined.
on the boat from which the photos.
To understand why an expert would land on undetermined, you have to understand how these determinations work. Drowning is what pathologists call a diagnosis of
it's not
exclusion.
like we just left him there.
None of them can
You
legally
rule out every other possible cause first, and only then, if nothing else explains it, do you conclude the water was responsible. That is difficult enough with a body examined quickly. It becomes far harder when time and the elements have been at work. And Nolan's second examination came days after he was found. Dr.
on the
Mitchell
video
reportedly noted
because if
real
you're going to make a
He
staunch,
described an area of discoloration on the back of Nolan's head that had not been explained. He said he could not tell whether Nolan was conscious or unconscious, forced or unforced before he entered the water.
Man, who was paying you? Because
the
it ain't
tissue that would
me.
normally help
Woman he'd
confirm
met
or
there.
rule out a drowning
friend,
was
when
not
asked-
available to him for examination.
I hear what you're
You
saying.
cannot answer the central question of the case
the details
when
about
the
that
very
and the
evidence
lump.
you
late
would
in the
use to
afternoon
answer it
because
is
of the
missing.
shadowing.
Here
the
is where the
Triton.
case stands right now.
I don't know it
The
off the top
state's
of my head.
official
Does this guy
autopsy
have
is
facial
complete,
hair? That's
but
not
the
Nolan.
results have not been made
Really
public.
hard to
Instead,
believe.
District Attorney Angel
Enhance that audio we keep
Myers-McElrath has said
playing.
they will go directly to a Jackson County grand jury along with the rest of the investigative evidence.
How do you know that was
She has been
taken?
clear that this is
Doesn't mean that he
routine.
was-
That in
There
her
could be a
county,
million
nearly
things,
every
accidental
unnatural
drowning,
death
case
is
closed.
presented
No.
to a grand
Just because
jury,
you drown
and that
on
convening one does not
behind
mean anyone
scenes.
believes a crime
That
occurred.
was a press
As of
conference.
now, no
And I
charges
wanted
have
to
been filed, and the grand jury has not returned a decision.
The whole time,
Dr. Mitchell is reportedly still seeking access to the tissue he was missing so he can complete his own findings. Crump's team, led by attorney Eric Hertz, says it now has forensic audio specialists reviewing the complete CTO call and ocean engineering experts studying how Nolan's body came to rest near
They're
the
out there
northwest
and
tip
they
of the
see a
island,
vehicle and they go,
close to where he was last seen.
Boats.
That last question points at
to
what one
preserve
analysis
relevant
called a
social
material
media
gap in
and
the
phone
timeline.
records.
The stretch between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the moment he was recovered that no account has fully
For
filled.
any kind
The threats
of
around this
traumatic
case have gotten
injuries.
so serious
showed
that a man in
some of the
California
kids,
was recently arrested,
And I have
accused
to
of
bring
making
my
online
friend out
threats
of
against
probation.
Judge
Find out
Ashley
if they're
Cole,
saying Nolan,
whose
Nolan's
family is
dead.
connected
Nolan-
to the broader story.
Crump of pushing
And a former
false
FBI
narrative.
agent,
Tooting your
Jennifer
own horn.
Coffindaffer,
Bonk,
has
bonk.
offered maybe the
That's-
most
The group
honest
of
summary
friends
anyone has.
they were
The publicly
communicating.
available
On that, though,
evidence,
might
she
not
has
be
said,
super
points
clear
toward an
on this,
accident,
my efforts to
but she
focus
is not
my
willing
search.
to
The
close
thing
any
that
door
stands out-
until
We
the full
provided,
picture is in.
show people up,
So let us
water up
end
to
where
their-
responsible
dispersed
people have
before.
to end, by separating what is confirmed from what
Nolan
merely went
Wells'
viral.
body.
What is
You saw
confirmed
there
is
in that
this.
clip. Well,
The enhanced audio
get
does
on the
not
boat
match
you
the
came
original
out in.
recording. The friends
Came
on that
and
boat describe a
protect
real
yourself.
emergency.
Use promo
At least
code.
two witnesses reportedly placed Nolan on the island after the boat left.
You have to
The
find
FBI's
them.
role is about
You have to-
threats,
Yeah,
not about
because
identifying
all
a
the
killer.
time they were saying,
The state
"Oh,
autopsy is done and sealed, and a grand jury is coming.
Times and
What
pulling
remains
in some of
open
the
is
relevant
just as
social
real.
media.
Dollar
There is
triple
still
lock
no established
protection.
cause of
That's
death.
24.
The missing tissue has left the central question unanswered. Nolan's phone has not yet been jointly examined, and no one has fully explained how he came to rest on the very shore he vanished from.
You're not as
A young man went out to celebrate a holiday with his friends and never came home, and the people who loved him are still, all these weeks later, waiting for the truth. We will follow this the way we always do, carefully, and only on the confirmed facts. And the moment the grand jury reaches a decision, we will be right back here to walk you through exactly what it means.